This video is about repairing the power door locks and removing the interior door panels on a Buick LaCrosse. This one happens to be a 2009. Here we see the power lock and the rear right door is not unlocking all the way. Here we see the door lock locking. And here we see the right rear door lock not unlocking. These are the tools that I used for this project. You don't need a battery screw gun, but that's a T30 Torx bit that I use both in the 1/4-inch ratchet, and that's a T30 screwdriver bit, all made up, and then a 10mm ratchet or combination box end wrench, small flashlight, a razor scraper or a razor box knife, plastic prying tools, a small screwdriver, needle nose, and I used a bungee cord and that little trick. I've got a little trick with this very small vacuum hose to re-guide the lock rod into the door panel. You'll see later on. The first item to do is to remove this rubber foot in the bottom of the door pull. This gives access to 2 screws securing the door panel. The next item is to remove this escutcheon plate behind the door handle. This provides access to another screw holding the door panel in place. The tool I like to use is this plastic spoon. It works well in getting behind panels and not marring the surface. Using a Torx of the appropriate size, remove these 3 screws. Note that the top screw is the shorter screw and the bottom 2 screws are the longer screws. Carefully pry around the base of the door panel, releasing these clips that you can see back here. You'll also have to unscrew this lock assembly. You'll want to have the window down when it's time to release the clips and the electrical switch on the back of the door panel. It's easy to reach, and then you'll have to close the window again. Through the open window you can see the lock cable assembly and the switch harness and switch. With this prying tool you'll release the clips to release this switch. Here you can see the switch is disconnected from the door panel. Here you can see on the back side of the door panel all the push-in fasteners that hold the door pad in place. The next step is to remove this sound deadener panel and the water seal, carefully releasing the glue behind it. Here you can see I'm using a razor scraper to cut through this sticky glue, and it appears that it will re-seal itself, so I'm not scraping it clean off the door. I'm actually cutting the gap in between. As you can see here, it's still sticky and yet it's still stuck on the door. Here you can see I've peeled back the waterproofing and sound deadener, and I've got it held back with a bungee cord just hooked here on the metal brace and hooked on the spring release, the spring detent cam. The next step is to get the window back up. The next step is to remove the lock rod and this rubber gasket right here and disconnect it from the integrated lock assembly. To remove this, you simply take your finger and pry those clips off and pull that rod out. Come back here and detent and pull this rubber gasket off. Now comes the fun part, disconnecting it, but that's after the door lock is loose. The next step is to squeeze from the back side these two little ears and pull off this wire harness clip, this wire harness clip, and this lock release clip. Here, I don't know if you can see it, but the lock is a fir tree style, not a squeeze type. The next step is to release the outside door handle lock rod, and it's connected with this yellow clip. Here we can see that I've pushed the clip out of the way and released the lock rod, so it's free. Here with the lock removed, you can see this little tab you have to slide over with your finger. That tab engages a clip that releases the lock rod to the door handle. You'll need to remove this bolt that's the rear window rear support, so you can push the support out of the way. It's 10 millimeter. I've already loosened it. The next step is to use a ratchet and a T30 and take these bolts out, but it's going to take more than my one hand can do. Nope. So I'll show you when they're loose. For speed, I cracked them loose with the ratchet, and then use the next step is to remove this lock rod from the lock assembly. It's this one we took loose earlier. This is the lock rod coming loose, and you'll notice that it has a Z shape at the end, so you have to twist the lock body to get that peg out of that plastic bushing on the lock assembly. Here you can see where I pulled it out of the plastic assembly. With the rear support loose that I just took the 10 millimeter screw out, allows this cable piece here to slide behind it, and this whole mechanism to come out behind it. Remove this electrical connector by prying up on this bracket right here. Okay, so once I had two hands free and pulled that red clip up, this connector pulled right off. So now there is my entire assembly. The next step is to move this cable assembly off of the old one onto the new one. This one happens to be a Dorman 931 381. You can see squeezing the clips pulled it out of the hole, and then the slot where the cable will come out, and it'll be free. And here it is, freed up, ready to go to the new unit. Unit's in place. Okay, so now I'm putting the harness back on. Let's see if I can do it one-handed. Push that on until it's in. Just push the clip in place, and there we go. Now we have to feed it again behind this brace that's right there. Here you can see I almost have the lock mechanism back in place, tucking it up behind this window brace. Stuck. And there it is, back in position. The next step is to put that Z-rod back in this white hole. I can't get my finger there. Right there above my thumb. This is going to be really hard to do and try and hold the camera, so just go with it. Here we can see the Z-rod pushed into place and through the body and it's ready to be back in position. The next step is to put these back in place. Then torque them with a ratchet. Okay, these are all secure. So now the next step is to go back in here and insert this lock rod into the plastic clip and snap it shut. That's it. And it's snapped shut. Push back in the wire supports. That rod. Put this rod back in its linkage. Snap the clip. Turn that up. Insert the Christmas tree fastener or fir tree fastener back in that holds the lock release cable. Reinstall the rear window support bolt and tighten it. Now that the window fastener is secure, put this rubber grommet back in place. Check the operation of the lock. Okay, so that should be unlocked. I like to manually close the latch right here and try it from outside, because if you close it and it's not connected, it's very hard to get the door open. You may be able to see that I closed the latch just like it would have connected to the strike. Now I'm going to pull the door handle and watch the latch release. So we're good. The next step is to reinstall this water seal and the sound dampener, and then put on the door panel. Now that the water seal is back in place and the lock rod is out and the window control switch is accessible, I'm going to open the window so I can reach it from the outside. Again, I have the door panel sandwiched between the door and the seat, so it's a support just so I can take this video. I'm going to install this, probably impossible with one hand. The first step is to put the ball and the cable end through the slot. Then pull it down into the slot below. Like I said, impossible with one hand. Well, it's in. So there we go. It's in place. The next step is to install the window switch. Can't quite reach it, but it just snaps into that slot. So I'll be doing that with two hands again. So here we see the window switch in place. The next step is to guide this rod into that hole and then hang it on the lip. There's a little trick I worked out, just a small piece of vacuum hose. Put it on the end of this lock rod, and I'll draw this up as I pull this into place and set the door panel down on the door. Here you see the hose now threaded through. It's very easy to take off. Lock knob can go back on. Using your fist and aligning the pegs, go around the base and just gently hammer with your fist and push the door panel back onto place, snapping it in place. Reinstall these two screws in the door handle and the screw here above the door lock release. Reinstall the rubber cover and the escutcheon plate, snapping it into place. Hard to do one-handed, let me tell you. There it is, all done.